Hello, everyone. How are you? Rob Howden here, the Road to Indy Insider. I had to make sure that I unmuted myself. I do that on occasion. Happy Monday. Welcome to another month of the year 2021. We're now into March and just another month to go before we finally get to the racetrack at Barber Motorsports Park for spring training on Easter weekend in April. Looking forward to that, of course. We're still here in the off season. There's still a lot of testing going on. And as you can see, announcements starting to come out here as well. Even more announcements still coming. I've got some that I know are coming yet. I have to keep those close to the vest, of course. Today, exclusive Autosport announcing that Artem Petrov will be joining Braden Eves in Indy Pro 2000. Expecting a couple more announcements coming throughout the week as well. So all the three of the series on the road to Indy are starting to form up, right? USF 2000, Indy Pro, Indy Lights. We know 12 confirmed drivers already in the Indy Lights series, hoping for 13 or 14 before we start the season. That would be ideal. Indy Pro 2000. I'm conservatively saying 16 or 17 for Barber, but it could be as high as 19. Maybe an outside chance of 20 for when we get to Barber for the first race in mid to late April. And of course, USF 2000, always kind of an interesting deal. You never know where it's going to end up. At one point, I thought we were going to have 30. I think we're going to start anywhere between 24 and 26 cars. It could be as high as 28, as there are some single car teams that are trying to fit things together and trying to find the budget that they need to go racing. Again, starting a brand new month here in March. So this is an interview that as soon as the announcement came, I called, connected, make sure this was going to happen, because today's guest is James Rowe Jr., the Irish driver we've seen over here in the U.S. for the last couple of years. He'll make his Road to Indy debut in Indy Pro 2000, a one-off event a couple of years ago in USF 2000. But now James locking in with Turn 3 Motorsport for the 2021 season. Excited to have him with me. Let me bring him in here right now. Boom. James, thank you for joining me here on the Road to Indy Insider Live. Dude, you're going racing.
Thank you for having me.
Road to Indy. Are you ready?
That's right. Yeah, I'm ready. It's exciting. It's super to finally get it done. You know, as you know, the Road to Indy has always been where I wanted to end up, and the IndyCar route was what we're working towards. I think, I don't know, it's maybe 2 or 3 years since we last spoke, and sure. you got that impression, and here we are now. So I'm excited.
Well, it's interesting, and as we do all these shows, especially with the younger drivers, people making their debut in the series, we'll get into your origin story. You can tell me all about your younger days of racing. But yeah, you know, I got a chance to know you a little bit. You came and run that race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway with Legacy Autosport. Had a good run, I think 5th in the second race. I'm like, this kid's the real deal. I can't wait to see what this guy can do. And then you end up going in a different direction for a couple of years. But I saw you at the racetrack still, because you were, you know, every so often working with the guys at Turn 3. How much of a relief is it for you right now? We'll get into it later, but how much of it is it a relief to finally get a program put together?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, I came over here in 2018, and I was running F2000 with the Arms Up guys on the FRP side, so the old US F2000s.
Yeah.
And that year I spent a lot of time with them at the track, and obviously then early that year got to test the USF with Swan RJB at the time, and that went very well. And then Alex Barron obviously had issues getting into the country, and Fred Edwards and Merle Swan said, hey, you know, you want to go and drive? I was in America maybe not even 2 months at that stage, and went to Indy GP and race, and obviously being in front of that IndyCar fan base, that package alongside IndyCar, seeing how the Road to Indy was ran, it was just a huge eye-opener for me. That was 2018. I started racing in 2015. I was 3 years racing at that stage. No go-karts, no nothing. So to come here and be put in front of that stage and my eyes opened, I said, okay, this is where I need to be. And ever since then, there are various different reasons. Careers go different ways at times where the opportunity for you is at that given time. And that's what happened. And as I said, the Road to Indy always was where I wanted to get onto, and where I see the natural progression being. And over the off season, you know, we worked extremely hard. It's the commercial offering too from the Road to Indy, and the return on investment for sponsors that you can offer being alongside IndyCar that really got it over the line. And that's being honest with you, you know, it wasn't me deciding if I wanted to go to the Road to Indy or not, or if there's a team there that will take me or anything like that. It was literally just putting that commercial package together that would take us there and give us a solid program. So that's where we're here now.
Isn't that interesting? Because that really is the reality of it. We can talk all about the emotional side of the fact that you're a talented driver, and people say, well, he got to ride somewhere. Well, to be honest, it's about putting the sponsorship package, the media, the business side of it together to be able to be in the right spot. And you're right. When you're at a racetrack, whether it's B2B, hospitality, experiential programs you put together, to be at an IndyCar weekend is obviously something big. And we'll get to that in a second. Let's go back, as you mentioned right there. Karting was not something you did. So let me get first and foremost, how did you get into the motorsports world? Was it a family thing? What was it that got you, your family, your own personal love for racing? And then where did you make your debut?
Yeah. So an interesting story. Obviously the career path, as I said, is very, very different than your average drivers. No karting whatsoever. My uncle, Michael Rowe, was a professional driver back in the day. He won the Can-Am Championship over here in '84 and done Japanese sports cars and Daytona and Le Mans when Nissan was on pole at 24 hour a few times in Nissan and stuff like that. So he had a professional career, and growing up from a very young age, being around cars, a family business back in Ireland is their motor repair shop. So
okay, all right.
Since I could walk, I was around street cars and helping out in the garage weekends and summer days and after school, all the usual stuff. So yeah, my uncle's career, I had the interest there. Being around cars, loved them, and always wanted to get into motorsport. But as you just touched on, going motor racing costs dollars, and we didn't have the opportunity when I was growing up. So I played the usual sports that 90% of kids do, and football and rugby and soccer, all the usual stuff. And basically, it came to a point where I was driving cars at home and around our family shop, all banged up cars that would come into the shop and weren't worth repairing since I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And we got to a point where I just said to my dad and uncle one day, look, I really want to go racing. I said, what can we do? We need to make this work somehow. And they turned around and said, well, look, here's the deal. We have the family garage or repair shop, so we have the resources to run the car.
Yeah, the shop.
And your uncle had a career, so he works driver. He knows the ins and outs. We can engineer a car, can coach you, whatever. So we've that side sorted. Now here's the deal: you go and get the money together and buy your first car, and we'll go racing. I said, all right. So this is the deal. This is when I was. Yeah, well, I didn't have an option. It's kind of sink or swim moment when you get told that.
Yes.
So I worked hard for a year and a half, 2 years, and got the money together to buy a Ginetta Junior in Ireland. At that stage, I was 13 or 14 years of age, and in Ireland, there's a class called Ginetta Juniors, which is for 14 to 17-year-olds. Yeah. And the only track in Ireland is 2 miles from my house, Mondello Park. So it just made perfect sense from a logistical standpoint and everything. So that's what we saved up, bought that car myself, and then we ran it. And again, at that point, I'd never done a qualifying session in my life. So we went out to Mondello for the first weekend, and we were on the podium first weekend. Said, okay, we should start taking this a little more serious. And the first year, just used one set of tires and left the car and pretty much on the trailer between races and had some podiums and stuff. But it was just me. 90% of the work was in bringing me up to speed. As I said, I'd never done anything prior to that. And then started taking things a little more serious, done it for a second year and had wins and lap records in it. And then Formula Ford, and rest is history.
Oh, I don't know that I've ever interviewed anybody or had somebody on the road to Indy who has had to save up as a 13, 14-year-old to buy their first race car. And I know that racing, we're lucky, right? To be able to move forward, a lot of times, 99.9% of the time, there's family money or there's sponsors, there's friends that come to support it. And I think that's an interesting part of the story that probably has shaped you and driven you in the right way. And maybe the reason why you're able to get to Indy Pro 2000, because from the very beginning, you realized you had to put the work in to be able to get the race car.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah. And that's exactly it in a nutshell. And don't get me wrong, there was, once I started and got up and running and a few results, and there was local press, and you had local companies coming on board and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. There was no it was family resources as opposed to family money, and that's the way it's been since day one, and it's the way it is today.
I love it. I think that's a fantastic story. All right, so let's go into, you do a couple years in the Ginetta Junior Cup, Rookie of the Year. I think the first year you win, your second place in the championship. The second year, when does the mind flip for you and say, hey, I need to get into an open wheel car? when did you decide you wanted to go F1600 racing?
So F1600 racing was always where we were going anyhow.
Okay.
My uncle, back in Ireland, back in the day, everyone done Formula Ford 1600, and my dad done a little bit of it. My uncle was works Van Diemen driver and had huge belief in that series. As I touched on with you before, it's an open book. You know, you have numerous chassis to choose from, numerous engine builders, gear ratios, dampers, springs, everything's open. You know, you can do what you want with the car. So from a learning standpoint, it's where we wanted to go. It's where, as I said, 90% of the guys in Ireland go to, and identified it, and that's where we went in 2016.
Let me set the stage for this, because you got to be able to, because this is amazing. We talked about before we came on the broadcast here. So you go F1600 racing, and instead of going out and picking up an older car, whatever it may be, you know, 1, 2, 3-year-old car, you end up connecting with Ralph Furman. And for those people who don't know who Ralph Furman is, if you're an F1600 guy or a Formula Ford guy, Ralph Furman was Van Diemen. He was the guy that had Van Diemen. You look at the works drivers, you talked about your uncle, you go back to other amazing works drivers that have come up through the years being, that factory guy at Van Diemen. Ralph was out of building Formula Fords for quite a while. Now, fill me in. It was the fact that your uncle and he reconnected. Ralph decided he wanted to build another car. So all of a sudden you find yourself as a factory driver with Ralph Furman.
Yeah, it's funny how it panned out. So the Formula Ford Festival in 2015, we went to it just to watch it, my uncle and I, and we were there. Ralph was there watching it too. And on the Saturday night of the festival, we went for dinner. Ralph, I, my uncle, and Ralph's wife Angie, and we're sitting down. And Ralph's a very quiet man, you know, doesn't say a whole lot. It's just, the ear to mouth ratio is very much figured out. So he's sitting there and just taking it all in and asking a little questions here and there. And he said to my uncle, "So what next year?" And my uncle said, "Yeah, look, we'll probably do Formula Ford in Ireland and give him a year to learn in it and let him figure some stuff out." And like, it was no big hype or anything. It was very casual. That's the way my uncle is too. Wouldn't really say a whole lot. Yeah. And Ralph turned around and said, "Well, look," he said, "to be honest with you, Michael, I'm getting bored here. You know, I'm not really doing a whole lot nowadays. We still have the shop. Everything's there. What if we build James a Formula Ford?" And my uncle kind of sat back and looked at him, like trying to figure out how many drinks has he had at this point or what's going on. And long story short, Ralph said, "No, look, I'm serious. I'll design a new car. We can't call it Van Diemen. Obviously, Van Diemen was sold many years ago. It's called a Furman. And the Furman 1600 was 98 when he last built a Formula Ford, which is the year that I was born. And he said, look, I'm only going to do it if you do it with me. It's going to take a lot of man hours." And it was like the band was back together from their point of view. You know, they won the festival in 78. He was the first guy to win a championship for Ralph here in the USA when Van Diemen came over here. And that was really it. So yeah, from 15 to 16, between the Christmas period, then Ralph came over to Ireland, and we spent a few weeks in Ireland going around looking at other cars. He'd forgotten what his Van Diemen even looks like. That's the brutally honest truth. So we spent some time looking at some cars, and he was figuring stuff out. And then they started making the car in the first week of the new year in 2016. And my uncle, spent 3-4 months with Ralph, and the two guys produced this for him in 1600. So, it was Amazing. It was 2016, April 2016, that the car rolled off the factory line, and there was 2 cars made. And obviously it was a huge development year, as you'd imagine with any new car. You know, not less than 6 months prior, we were sitting at the festival talking about producing a car, and all of a sudden we're going to race in this car. So, as I said to you, that year wasn't a particularly great year from a results standpoint. I think I had 2 or 3 podiums in some races, but my vehicle dynamics knowledge and my appreciation for vehicle dynamics grew immensely. You know, you're sitting here with these guys like Ralph worked with Fittipaldi, Senna, Weber, Button, you name it, you know, all these guys, and he's giving you stories that, you know, their weak points and their strong areas. And then you're at the track, and you're it's an open book, as I keep saying. So you're making really big adjustments, and as a driver, you're getting to feel this all out. So it was invaluable. You know, when I look back on it, at the moment, you're a young guy, you're just out of a series where you're winning on a lap record, so you think you should be winning on lap records in it, and you're getting a little bit frustrated. But when I look back at it, what an opportunity, you know, to be able to say that I done that and got through it and had that time, and that really, it was like going to school. It was like going to college, you know. It was like
100%.
college of life being with these boys, and it was great, yeah.
James, you think the most guys or kids will come out of karting or whatever and go into that, you know, F1600 for the first time, and they're just all about learning how to drive the car. Like you said, the amount of education you got sitting down and being with the master, Ralph Furman, for so long at the shop. You talked about before we came on about just being at the shop and talking about why things were being built together, why he was designing things a certain way. Man, what an opportunity for you, and what a change in your life for sure.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And then as Ralph being Ralph and my uncle being my uncle, they're racers. The following year, because we didn't have much success that year, they said, you know what, let's go back to what we know here. So this is where it gets funny. For the following year, the second year in Formula Ford, we went back to the car that he designed in '98.
Seriously?
I went and raced it. Yeah, went racing it, and had wins and lap records and stuff in it. So yeah, it's an amazing 2 years, and we done a lot together, and it was an awesome time.
So you've ended up finishing second in the championship in 2017, right? I think in that car.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And second in the championship, 2 lap records at Knockhill and Donington Park, and then a number of wins and podiums and stuff. So yeah, that was a really, really good year. I learned a lot in it too, because, you know, there's a difference between racing mid-pack and racing at the front. And in Formula Ford, it's a lot of draft, and it's hard racing. As you know, you hear about the guys who go to the festival every year, and learned a huge amount in it. So yeah, it's funny. In that year, we were racing against Peter's dad, Cliff. So the team I was in, he was our rival, and now here we are with Peter racing over here. So it's funny.
I know.
The wheel does the circle.
It's so interconnected, right? When it all ends up being done.
Yeah.
All right. So always a question for me, for any European driver, is what's the mindset change when you decide you have to come to the U.S.? Was it the fact that did you think about IndyCar at that point? Was it just the road to Indy's, how it was kind of developing at that point? Because in 2018, you don't come to the road to Indy, but you come over to run the F2000 Championship Series. Again, great race cars, the old F2000 cars. What was the mindset to come over here to the U.S.?
If I'm going to be brutally honest with you, it was the opportunity that I saw here in the USA versus Europe. Obviously, as we know, for racing drivers, and especially the position where I was in, where I was having to raise everything and put all the programs together, that if you go off and win in Europe, no matter what the series is, whether it's F4, F3, even Formula 2, the hard truth is that you essentially get a clap in the back and someone says, well done, and you're back to square one. So you look at the road to Indy, and you can put it any way you want. You look at the road to Indy and you get a champion. You know, we've seen so many guys who've won championships, and the road to Indy, or Maz at the time, or Cooper Tire, or whoever it may be, Dan Anderson, was their saving grace to progress onto the next step. So not only did they win, but they got opportunity. And that to me was a big hook. Obviously, there were some drivers who came over here in the past and done well. Obviously, my uncle's time over here, he loved it and had a lot of success over here. And it was just, there was never a moment where I sat down and had to really think about, okay, flip a coin here, where am I going? America was where I wanted to go from a very early age. I think in 16, I started figuring out how am I going to get the money to do USF. And it was just where I wanted to go to. So came up, didn't get the USF money in 18, and the Arms Up guys were getting into F4P, F2000, as you said, with the old USF cars.
Yep.
And it was our first year in that championship. So Greg said, look, we're prepared to give you a dig out here, but we got to go and get results. And that's what we done a small deal on a results-based agreement, and went out, and we got some results and podiums and wins, and got baselined against Telitz, which was funny, before we done the deal in Memphis and in Tennessee, and that went well. And yeah, then I've been here ever since. I love it.
They have. So you do F60, I mean, F2000, did a great job there. 3 wins, as you said, I think second in the championship that year in F2000 with arms up. Then you move over to what was then the US F3 program that, of course, morphed into the Formula Regional America Series. You've done 2 years of that, a couple of victories and fifth in the points back in, I think, 18. Last year, of course, again, running with, I think you were with Global Racing Group, a number of top fives, 15 top 10s. You were consistent throughout the year. Yeah. What are your thoughts on your development? Let's wrap up your pre-road to Indy stuff with the development over those years in that F3 equipment.
Yeah. Over the years, obviously 2018, I felt I developed a lot, came from the Ford 600 with narrow tires and no aero to the F2000 with a slick tire, and those USFs have quite a bit of downforce. The old USF, the Van Diemen.
The old car, more than now,
Yeah. Learned a lot in it, and confidence was high. Everything was great. Being, as I said, baseline against Telitz was very well respected and numerous times, and it always went well. And went to F3 or F4 Americas as it is now in 2019, and it wasn't a planned move. Very quickly again. Uncle comes into this story too. Max Crawford, who's Ligier North America, was the first guy that Max worked for. Was my uncle's Can-Am team in '84. He was the composites guy, so he moved over from New Zealand and worked for him. My uncle hired him and gave him his first job in America, and they stayed in contact since. So when Max heard it was a Mid-Ohio race weekend in 2018 for F4P, I think I had 2 podiums that weekend, and Max came over at the end of the weekend and said, "Hey, look, F3 is starting next year. Let's just stay in contact, said nothing more." Knew that there wasn't a big checkbook behind this. Anyway, long story short, again, middle of February into March of 2019, he called up and said, "Hey, I think I can make something work for Formula 3. You want to do it?" And at that time, I was on the fence with Road to Indy. Wasn't definite. I had some offers, and I could make it work, so went with it, and just went into it from the deal was you do every event and the day prior to it, so straight into the deep end in the sense of the car was double the weight of what I'd driven before, double the tire size and more downforce. So the first year I learned a lot, but then, if I'm honest, the curves went pretty stagnant for a number of reasons, and some are obvious and some aren't, and it was frustrating. It was, I'll be honest with you. But again, learned a lot in the sense of the way in which you race those cars is very different than anything that I experienced before with the aero wash and all that kind of stuff. So got around it, and I'll be straight. The past year I wasn't even happy with the results. It was a very, very competitive year. Obviously, you'd a lot of the front runners of the Road to Indy coming to it, whether it's Malukas, Franzoni, Lindquist was over, Santiarucci, these guys, and mixed with them at times. Everyone except Linus. Linus was on a bit of a roll.
No kidding,
but no kidding there. So mixed with the others at times, and at the end of the year, didn't really know where I stood. And then this brings us into the Indy Pro side of things. So throughout the year, I was working with Jonathan George. He was working for Global, and I was with him, and he always said, "Look," he said, "Trust me, your driving style that I see here isn't for this car." He said, "That's the bottom line." He said, "It's a very unique way of driving this car. It's super heavy and understeers a lot."
Okay.
He said, "It's an Indy Pro style. When I look at your data, it looks like an Indy Pro driver." And he said it, and I never really took much about it. I mean, I was in the middle of the season. What you do, you kind of you just bank it and know that it's there. So once the season was over, I said, "Okay, what's next?" Road to Indy. I because it's all done off partnership and sponsorship, where can I offer the most? Looked at Road to Indy, there's a lot of offering. And then the big thing was, okay, my style is probably going to suit the Indy Pro, just going off what I heard. And went and done a test at Sebring with Turn 3 just prior to Christmas, came together quite late. And the test went pretty well. I was happy with it. Yeah, there we go. The team were happy with it. And I mean, man, I love the car. I was just smiling from ear to ear for 2 days straight, and how you drive that car, how late you can brake, how much speed you can carry, how aggressive it is. It's just it's amazing. So to get back into it, it was a sigh of relief. You know, I was back to what I thought I could do, and as I said, the team were awesome. They're racers, and that to me is what I come from. I come from a race family, being around racers, and Peter and Richard Lyons, who's there, and Ernie Ganella. All these guys are just racers. You know, there's no politics in the team. There's no like kind of putting spins and stuff. It's a results based business, and they're racers, and that's the principle from the minute you arrive to the minute you get out of the car. And that to me was back to what I know.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. We talked about this before we started. This makes me laugh. I have all these pictures prepped that I was going to be posted up as you were talking about your career, but I was so enthralled while you were talking about it, I forgot to post them. So I'll post them as we go through, as we talk a little bit here, because here's what I want. The cool factor about this is you mentioned the fact that you went head-to-head with Cliff Dempsey and their team when you were running in F1600. This is really kind of cool because we put together this kind of all Irish team, right? You're from Ireland, of course. The Dempseys are from Ireland, so now it's an Irish team owner in Peter. He'll be your engineer. We got an Irish driver. James, what does that mean to you? I'll scan through the pictures while you talk about this, but man, this is a kind of a really, really cool way for you to come in.
Yeah, no, it's very, very, very unique. You know, for it to happen to be such an Irish program is strange, because it'd be one thing if it was an Irish driver and Irish partners with an American team or whatever, but to be complete Irish unit is very, very, very unique. And it's something that is great for Irish motorsport back home. You know, obviously in the times we live in right now with COVID, the truth be told, motorsport over in Ireland isn't great at the moment. There's a lot of events being cancelled and people are just trying to stay going. So to bring a positive news story to Ireland and Irish motorsport of this Irish team that's together in America. We're so fortunate to be racing on the road to Indy. You know how many championships around the world are being postponed and put off. So for us, it's a good news story that we can bring to Ireland, and the support that we're getting right now from people back in Ireland is amazing. I mean, all week there's been texts and emails and tweets from people just saying how awesome this is to see. You know, they love seeing it, and yeah, it's something. I'll be honest. It gives you a little bit more motivation when it's essentially like representing your nation. You know, it's the whole Irish team, and first Irish driver for turn 3, which is cool for Peter, and I think he's excited by it, and yeah, it's going to be great.
Oh, we've talked a lot about the different stuff you've been able to do. I scanned through the pictures, running Formula 4, the F2000 car. Talked about you running the race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course in USF 2000 back in 19. I'm going to bring a picture up here and tell me the opportunities that you have had working with. I believe it's a historic shop. Is that what it is? If I bring this picture here up.
Yeah, so that's CJJ Motorsport, and CJJ Motorsport was a young driver development program set up by a dear friend called John Campion, who unfortunately passed away last October. And basically, John was an avid car collector, big about his Irish roots, very, very successful Irish businessman. And he set up a foundation in Ireland in 2016 called Team Ireland, very similar to the Team USA program over here. And the goal was to fast track to the career of 2 or 3 young Irish racing drivers. I was fortunate to be on it since its inaugural year. And through it, John morphed into having his own junior program. And that's something that I was fortunate to be on. So I was racing the CJJ livery for the past 2 years. Okay. And then John said, you know, Irish motorsport is awesome. He retired from business and started collecting Irish race cars. So any car that had anything to do with a successful Irish driver, whether it be Derek Daly's Guinness Formula 1 car that you see there, to Eddie Jordan's Formula Ford 1600, to Billy Coleman, he's a famous Irish rally driver, his Escort, all just stuff that to other people around the globe, truth be told, may not have anything, but to Irish people, it was really cool. Yeah. Had this collection in Jacksonville, Florida, and that what you see there is the Guinness Formula 1 car driven by Derek Daly, and in 2019, we flew the car to Ireland and done a demo at the Mondello Park Historic Festival, which is the track that I mentioned. Awesome. It's only 2 miles from my house. Yeah, and it was cool. John was there. He just recently beaten leukemia, got out of it, drove the car himself. Doctors thought he was absolutely insane. And Derek was there, and I was there, and it was the whole CJJ crew. So that was a very cool experience, and something that I'll remember forever. His wife Suzanne was there.
And you drove a bunch of different cars, right?
Yeah, we done a lot of stuff. We drove the Lancia LC1, which was awesome. Spirit of Miami March 83G with Emerson Fittipaldi at a homestead in Miami back in 2018. We drove it together, and that too was awesome. Getting to share a car with him and a track with him for a day, and just get appreciation for him, and also appreciation for the drivers back in the day. You drive that car around Homestead for a 20-minute session. It's like 600 something horsepower, manual, heavy, old style, everything's heavy. So your appreciation for what the guy's done just went through the roof, because he raced that car for 2 hours around the streets of Miami and won. And to drive it on the limit for so long, and how physical it was back in the day when there was no pit fits or whatever there is now, was awesome.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so let's fast forward. You've talked about the fact that we brought you to the fact that you'll be running Indy Pro 2000 this year with Turn 3 Motorsports. Let's talk a little bit about how that came together. You were able to get a chance to race with them, what it means to you. What are your expectations coming for this new year as well? Let's just talk first about how did it all come together?
So as I said, Indy Pro was where my eyes were looking, and in November, early December, I reached out to a few teams. I think it was 2 or 3 teams, and was very early stages of talking with all. And Peter was the one that could make the test happen. That matched what I could do, and he was very honest from the get go. And as I said, I got that racer feeling that I was so used to back in Europe.
Yeah.
Anyway, we went and done the test. No big expectations. It wasn't like, oh, this is a done deal. This is the start of our program. Just let's go do the test. Very much Turn 3 evaluating me after the year that went by, and I evaluated myself essentially again, and making sure that we're not flogging a dead horse here. And went and done it, and yeah, we were all very happy with it, and my love for motorsport sparked right back up. I was loving it. I couldn't get enough of it, and the team were awesome. They were racers. They were just, yeah. I don't know. There's not really words to describe it. It's just a feeling that you get once you're around those guys, between Peter, Richard, and Ernie, and they're results driven, and very, very straight up. No putting sugar coats on anything, and that's the way that I am as a person too. So clicked right away, progressed a lot, winning the test. Obviously the Indy Pro was very different than the F3, and we were happy where we ended up. So then between Christmas and New Year, I planned to have some time off back in Ireland. I wasn't in Ireland all last year, but didn't have that. We started talking in a positive manner, saying, look, we want to make something work here. What can you do? Here's what I can do. And we came to an agreement. Thankfully, all the partners on board agreed to it. And, the bottom line is, regardless of what I want to do or what Turn 3 wanted to do, the partners were the people and the organizations or the corporates at the end of the day who were going to make it work. So I have to thank them for making it work. And yeah, we got it done, and we're happy with it. So it's all good. It's really exciting, if I'm honest with you, because
yeah, I can imagine
the team is a team thing that I'm so excited about. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen someone who works so hard. You can call anyone in that team 7 days a week, anytime, and they'll either answer or get back to you very, very soon. I'm getting messages and emails on Saturday nights and Sundays about tests coming up, and we're talking about stuff with the car and what window we want to work it in, and just, it's a good language to be seen. It's 7 days a week, and that to me is very exciting as a driver. When you have your crew working so hard, it brings confidence to a driver.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have like that synchronicity, right? You have that same mindset in the sport, and which I think is fantastic. Like you mentioned your partners, and I know that you've worked, very hard at putting this together. We talked about from the get-go, you actually spending the time saving the money to be able to buy that first Ginetta. give me a little overview of the partners that you've been able to put together, all the B2B, everybody that's come to work with you and are going to be, they're the guys that you're going to be promoting this year and working with on the road to Indy.
Yeah, so there's some that are going to be announced in the next 3 to 4 weeks, which I won't get into right now. So it mightn't sound like there's a whole lot, but the big announcement was last week with Top Positioning Group. That's a long-standing relationship since 2019, and it's something that we've enjoyed a lot of success with. Topcon are a precise measurement equipment technology company, and they've happened to see the correlation between motorsport and the precision involved in motorsport as to the precision involved in their own world. And they have a product called Smooth Ride, which is used for the resurfacing of racetrack, runways, and highways, and used on Silverstone in the UK Formula One track and Singapore Grand Prix track and stuff. So I've been the brand ambassador for Smooth Ride, essentially, as opposed to a salesman talking about Smooth Ride. I can speak about it from a driver's standpoint and what the benefits of a smooth racetrack are, not only to us as drivers from a safety standpoint, but to the teams from a performance standpoint and the wear and tear on cars and the overall package, whether it's promoters, the track officials not having to worry about rain delays and tracks getting flooded, the whole way across the board. So we started off on a good level, nothing too crazy, but things have really ramped up as we began to see the true value here, and it's something that I'm very proud of because it takes a lot of work. They're a huge corporation, quite large, 26 countries around the world. And for a company like that to be putting so much belief into my program and the value that they see here and within the Road to Indy and the construction contractors club that's on the Road to Indy, all this really good stuff. It's a credit to the Road to Indy, if I'm honest with you, that I can go and present something like that. So that's great. And a few other things that, as I said, will be announced soon that I'm excited about. 1 or 2 big things, and then there's some individuals behind the scenes who prefer to remain anonymous, and they know who they are, and I'm just very, very lucky, as I said, to be able to do what I do without an ounce of family funding is very, very rare, and very, very lucky to be able to do so.
You'll be flying that Irish flag throughout the year?
Oh, absolutely. There's shamrock on the front of my helmet. You'll see me.
I saw that. Now I can actually grab that right here again. I was looking at that. There's that shamrock right there. I love it.
You won't miss it, Rob.
All right. Last question. We'll wrap things up here. What's a good season for James Rowe? You're obviously going into Indy Pro 2000 for the first time. It's a car you really haven't raced before. It's more suiting your style, as JJ says. What's a good year for you this year?
I don't know yet because we haven't gone out and really done the official series test around guys. So I'd be guessing. Obviously, I'm going to be optimistic here. And basically, I believe in the team and the team's package. They've been front runners or fighting for podiums all season. And I believe in my ability. Otherwise, I wouldn't be putting the work and effort in that I am. So the goal is to be fighting up front. Now, what position that is, we don't know as of yet. We'll know when we hit the track with everyone, but it's to be fighting and in that leading bunch. That's the bottom line, and fighting for top results. So that's what we'll go and achieve, and let's just see where we pan out. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of stuff that I'm excited about, and then there's other bits that I know I'm going to have to learn a lot about. The team have 1 or 2 areas that they too know they need to work on. So we're just going to put our heads down, work hard, and the belief is if we work harder than everyone else, we should be in a good position. So wherever that is, we'll soon find out.
Well, James, I'll tell you, I look forward to seeing you down at Barber for spring training. Of course, we start there a couple of weeks later. Then we go to St. Petersburg. It's going to be a fun season. Great to have you on board.
Cheers. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See you then.
James, thanks again, man. You stay there in the back of the studio. I'll talk to you in a second. Folks, I'll tell you, I had all those pictures lined up, but I got enthralled. I was just listening to the story come through, and from the very get-go, James saying that he had to go find the money for that first car. The family money isn't there. He's had to put together partners, able to kind of leverage his experience with his uncle and his dad and that connection with Ralph Furman, all that stuff in F1600. And you just watch that kind of development, the picking and choosing his way kind of through the forest to find his way to the road to Indy with that ultimate goal of being able to make it to IndyCar. I like the fact that he's slotting into Indy Pro 2000 after a couple of years in the F3 machinery. You could hear from his coach saying that maybe this car is going to be a bit better for him, more suited for his driving style. That bodes well, right? That starts another storyline for the 2021 season. I can't wait to get things going, and I think not quite maybe as much as James, but I can't wait to get to Barber Motorsports Park for both spring training and the opening round of the season as well. Turn 3 Motorsport with Peter Dempsey and Andy Dempsey have been around for quite a while. As we know, they've pushed hard in the Indy Pro 2000. They're going to be adding, as we know, 2 cars in the USF 2000 series as well. James will be that guy up there in Indy Pro. They're trying to get that second car. I know they have a second car now, so they're trying to get a second driver to go alongside James. This is going to be a really interesting program to watch all in all. And as we talk, and so many shows that I've done here on Road to Indy Insider and on Book It, we talk about the Team USA scholarship guys, or me having the interview with Max Esterson last week, talking about the fact that they work with Cliff Dempsey. Well, there's that kind of Dempsey mindset, right? These guys live and breathe racing. Peter's exactly like his dad that way. That bodes well, again, for what they can do in this all-Irish team in Indy Pro 2000 for 2021. Make sure you watch it. Make sure you stay tuned to everything that we do here on the Road to Indy Insider. Road to Indy TV will have all the broadcasts. For those of you watching back in Ireland, all the Indy Pro 2000 races will be available on Road to Indy TV. So you won't miss any of James's races whatsoever, and we'll try to get him back on a show here again mid-season. Thank you so much for joining, folks. My name is Rob Howden. Okay.